lifetime into this. Granted, it was 23 years ago.
This is the Gullah Geechee Gallery. Here, I would argue every American history museum should have a little bit of it. We have the opportunity of an entire gallery that is present on our trip to Angola. One of the reasons that we think the word Gullah came from was the abbreviation of Angola, because we wanted so many of their people because they understood rights and traditions. Something we're all very familiar with, the Praise House, so Southern iconic space will come right in here. So we built this Praise House to look like Praise House here all over the low country.
And it grows.
It just kept growing. And you kept making it. I got done. I talked to people. We've done both. And in the book, you see.
That is an amazing question. So, office. So we did have some Muslim folks, we have African Americans, we did actually have Christians as well who were being enslaved in that time.
It's fine.
It's bigger. But at some point, African Americans decided that sounds like our story about trying to be free and not working in your own home. This way. So as we come into this larger space of the gallery, one of the things we try to do is show the impact of the Gullah Geechee community and culture on all of the United States. A lot of what we consider Southern culture is really the West African influence on the making of America, but also some things you might not know. So here we have a picture of Reverend Esau Jenkins. When they talk about Rosa Parks coming to the Low Country to be trained, this was who helped train her. Reverend Jenkins and Septima Clark were part of her training in that space. And then we have some traditional elements. This is a bateau that we had built using the old ways with the old tools. There's a lot of water down here in the Low Country. Sometimes it's in places we don't want it to be. But this is a water-faring people. And so there's a tradition of boating and fishing. And over here, we talk a lot of the cultural elements. We talk a little bit about the recipes, of which you had a taste when you came in earlier, some of that good old Southern and Gullah influence cooking. And we do a nod to things people don't know, Porgy and Bess. So the inspiration for Porgy and Bess was down here. It was Rainbow Row, it was the Gullah Geechee community and the ways of being in that space. So we just use this gallery.
The Gullah Geechee communities for real?
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I thought it was incredible.
I see a lot of nodding heads. Because of the sea islands and the isolation, this particular community of African Americans maintains strong memory and cultural ties. We're most known for the sweetgrass baskets, of course, and all of that. It's the way that we maintain beauty and sense of self, even in the midst of tragedy and trauma. All right, so from here, we'll go ahead and walk across to our next space, the Gold Gallery. So while we infuse the story throughout the museum, this is the gallery that speaks the most and most deeply about the traditions, the institution of slavery and enslavement. And we try to do a couple things in this space. We try to be authentic and honest about the inhumanity of the institution without losing sight of the humanity of the people who were enslaved. And so behind me on this side, we do a lot of talking about the institution of slavery and enslavement. We have a mock-up of a rice plantation. We talk here about the technology and innovation that the enslaved people brought. We like to say it was never just the labor. It was also the science and ingenuity that these Africans already knew. Right? As far back as 300 BCE, they were growing rice on the continent of Africa. And here the one thing we have in common is we have fresh water meeting salt water, which is very, very difficult to manage. And they understood that too. And so that's how it became a priority to bring in people from Angola and the West Coast and places that already knew how to cultivate rice. At one point, we were challenging China for the position as #1 global rice exporter to the world. Here in the Low Country. Here on this side, we talk about individual people, names and stories. We know that a lot of names have been lost. We know a lot of personal stories have been lost, but not all of them. As a matter of fact, a good number are in the Library of Congress because we had the Federal Writers Project that went into the Deep South and took oral histories of living formerly enslaved people. And so we have 2 of the stories here on this board, and we pulled out a couple of names and faces that we can also explain to help humanize, to allow folks to realize that these were people. One of the most interesting things in this gallery is that people resonate with the people. If I ever get anyone in here from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, or someone who has a relative there, that is the first thing that they zone in on. And that bit of humanity and connection helps folks calm down and take the information in. And behind the secretary here, we have an artifact that many are familiar with. A lot of folks are familiar with David Drake. He was probably the most well-known of the black potters of Edgefield, South Carolina, because it wasn't all agriculture, right? So there was also manufacturing. And what's remarkable is incredibly skilled, incredibly talented. A lot of his work still survives and is beautiful and is in this space. And so we can use this to show, because in particular, David Drake is known for signing his work and even putting original snippets of his own poetry on the work. And this was a time when Africans and African